Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Beis Amud Aleph. At the very top, the new parak. The second parak comes off the heels of the previous parak that discusses the Trumas Hadesh and the first Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash of the day. Our Mishnah continues to speak about how do we determine which kohen performs that Avodah of Trumas Hadeshin. There's a machlekes Rishonim Migabe Yom Kippurim. Is it the Kohen Gadol that performs the Trumas Hadeshin as well as the rest of the Avodas Hayoim? Or no? He only performs the Avodas Dafka during the day, and since Trumas Hadeshin is at night, on Yom Kippurim at Chatzois, he does not do the Avodah. The difference would be, is our Mishnah discussing then also Yom HaKippurim or just the rest of the year? Explains the Mishnah, Barishona initially, Kol Misha Roitze Litra Mes HaMizbeach Torim. In order to then determine who gets the Trumas Hadeshin, whoever came up earlier, the earliest person coming in to the Beis HaMikdash, he will then get the Din Kedima and be Zoichet to the Avodah of Trumas Hadeshin. That's how it was initially. Ubizman Sheheim Merubin. However, when there's many people that arrived early in the morning, Ratzin Va'oilin Bekevish, they would make a ritzah, they would make a foot race in order to determine who is the one who's going to be zoichet to the avodas of Trumas Hadeshin. They would make a foot race that they would go up the ramp of the Mizbeach. Who's ever first within the Dalet Amos of the Mizbeach will be zoichet. What happens if two of them came exactly at the same time? Then, says the Mishnah, Hamemuna oimer lehen hatzbi'u. Then there would be somebody who was in charge, and he would determine that everybody together, all the kohanim that were present, lift up their finger, and he would count and make a count, and through that count he would determine who would be zoiche. How would he do that? He would take off the hat of one of the kohanim. He would put them all in a circle. The one he took off the hat from, he would begin counting, and he would choose a number beforehand that is greater than the amount of the kohanim present. And therefore, wherever he would then end up, that was the kohen who was zoichet to Trumas Hadeshin. Umahein moitzin. What would they take out? What would they pick up? Achas or shtaim, either one or two fingers. Ve'ein moitzin aguda b'mikdash. They would not pick up the thumb in the mikdash, because there's a concern that if they pick up the thumb and then pick up another finger, it could be counted twice. Now the Mishnah tells us of a Maisa where two Kohanim in this foot race were running together side by side. Verotzin va'oilin bekevish, as they were running up the ramp of the Mizbeach. V'dochaf echad mechaveroi v'nafal v'nishbro ragloi. One pushed his fellow off the ramp, who fell and he broke his leg. V'kivan shero bezdin sheboin lidei sakana. Once the bezdin saw that this could lead to danger, he skinu shelo yuhu tormin as a mizbech ela bepayis. They determined that a goyral, a pious, would have to be then what determines who is the one who does the avodah of the Trumas Hadeshin. And now the Mishnah concludes, Arb payosos hayusham. There were four payosos, four different lotteries that were performed over the course of the day in the Beis HaMikdash. V'zeh payis harishon. This was the first payis to determine who was then zoiche in Trumas Hadeshin. The Gemara asks right away, V'ho, behold mi'ikara, my time lo takinulu rabbanim paisa. Hare, all of the other avodas of the Yoim were done by a pious. So why wasn't this also initially done with a pious? Why only after what took place do we say that we then make a pious, and this is the first of the four? Why didn't we initially require lots to be drawn, and then we can determine who is the one who's zoichet to the Trumas Hadeshin? Answers the Gemara, Mikara Sover Kivan the Avodas Lailohi Loichashiva Luvalo Osu. Initially we thought that since this could be done, this avodah of the Trumas Hadeshin at night, it doesn't have chashivus in the eyes of the Kohanim, and therefore they will not come. But once we saw that indeed they did come and they were interested in doing the avodah of Trumas Hadeshin, so then we saw that when the people were coming, then it led to a sakana. That means that they first did a ritza, and then we saw that led to a sakana, so then they enacted pious even for the Trumas Hadeshin. Ask the Gemara, Varei Aivorim Pedorim Da'avodas La'ilahu V'takinu L'Rabbanim Payasa. We have the avodah of burning the fats and the Aivorim of the carbon that was performed that day at night. So that avodah that was performed at night, you would say, also would not require pious, and yet we find later on in our parak that was done through a pious. They would then take the pedorim and the avorim of the carbon, and they would put it on the kevish, and then they would put it from the kevish above and bring it to the mizbeach. So indeed, this was done by lot, even though this was an avodah that can be performed at night. Answers the Gemara, Soif avodah the yamamahi. Even though it's true the burning of the fats and the avarim on the mizbeach can be done at night, but nonetheless it was a continuation of the avodah that was performed during the day. The avodah was a slaughtering of the carbon, was sprinkling the dam on the mizbeach, so it was a continuation of that avodah. So it had a chashivus in the eyes of the kohanim. But Trumas Hadeshin, which can be performed at night, so then that doesn't have chashivus, and therefore we had to then initially suggest that should be done al day aritza, and then when that took place, and that was the sakana, then we made finally a pious. Ask the Gemara, but also the Trumas Hadeshin was the beginning of the avodah. Because Rabbi Yochanan said, Kidesh yadav v'raglav l'Trumas Hadeshin l'machar ein tzarich l'kadesh shekvar kidesh mitchilas avodah. Rabbi Yochanan said that even the opinion that tells us that we require the kohen who did kiddush and yadav v'raglav before daybreak in the morning, before the morning came, even if he's makpid that he does wash again and mekadesh yadav v'raglav, but over here when it comes to somebody who does Trumas Hadeshin, that he doesn't need to. Why? Because it's mitchilas avodah. It's from the beginning of the avodah. So we see this is also then the beginning of the avodah, which should give the kohen chashivus for this avodah Trumas Hadeshin. So shuv, we're asking, why didn't we then require a pious from the beginning? Answers the Gemara, Ema shekavar kidesh mitchila la'avodah. You have to say what Rabbi Yochanan meant to say was not that it's the beginning of the avodah, rather it's from the beginning for the shame of the avodah, and therefore Trumas Hadeshin was simply an avodah at night. It was not a beginning of the rest of the avodah that would take place during the day, and therefore it didn't have chashivus in the eyes of the kohanim. That's what we thought initially. There's another way to explain why this wasn't like pious from the beginning, because mi'ikara savur kivan the ika oynes sheina loyasu. Initially we thought that since that sleep would be so difficult for people to then overcome, and for them to get so early in the morning, that means the kohanim to do the Trumas Hadeshin. So, we thought that people would not come. Kizu the chazu the asu v'kaasu nami de sakana takinu le'rabbanim payasa. But then we saw that indeed kohanim did come in order to then perform the avodah of Trumas Hadeshin, and they overcame their sleep in order to do so. So then we saw that it led to a sakana, because therefore we saw people were then doing a ritza, and this is what had took place. There was in danger involved, so we had to then enact pious. Asking if you're going to say an additional reason is because that there's a difficulty of sheina, of sleep, and we initially thought that people, the kohanim, would not overcome that urge to sleep a little bit later and not get up so early. So that is equally true lechara in terms of the nighttime avodah of burning the pedarim and avarim on the mizbeach. Answers the Gemara, shiny minga mimekom. There's a difference between one who goes to sleep and one who then wakes up going to sleep, a person can push off that tiredness a little bit easier. But to stay in bed a little bit longer is more difficult, and therefore we initially thought that the Kohanim, in regards to the Trumas Hadeshen, would not get up in the morning so easily, and therefore we said first come, first serve. When there was a lot of Kohanim, then we said a Ritza, a foot race. Once we saw that the foot race caused a sakana, then we made the pious. Asked the Gemara, "V'takanta lahach gisa havoy." Was this indeed the initial reason for then causing the reason for them to ultimately bring about the pious? Is it true that this is what we thought? Asked the Gemara. Takanta lahagisa havai. Rather, it was a katana for the following reason. Not because of it was a sakana, and therefore we ultimately led it to a pious, but because the Tanya, for the following reason. Misha zacha b'trumas hadeshen yizke b'sidra ma'arocha v'shnei gizrek eitzim. It was why? Is because we saw that the Kohanim were interested. They knew that somebody who was zoiche to the Trumas Hadeshen will also be zoiche to two other avodos, namely the being mesader, the ma'arocha, the pyre of the mizbeach, as well as putting 2 logs of wood on the mizbeach. So that gave it chashivus. So not because we thought they didn't have chashivus initially, and therefore we said first come, first serve, and then we said that led to then a foot race, which was a sakana, and then ultimately then it came to a pious. No, we originally thought that there was an interest, as we see in this brisa, not like we said in the Mishnah. Amar Ravashi, no, shtei takanas have. There was 2 different stages. First, we thought they wouldn't come. Indeed, they weren't going to come. We said maybe because they're too tired, or because the other reason we said because if they're not interested, they don't think it's chashuv. Kiven de chazu de kaasu. Once we saw that they were coming, ve'asu nami de sakana takin lebayasa, and they did come, and they made a foot race, and that could lead to a sakana. So then we made a pious. Kiven de takinu lepaisa leasu. But once we made a pious, and we saw the Kohanim were not coming, because they said, why should we come? After all, it's just a pious Amrei miyema de misra milon, who said that I'm going to win out the avoid of Trumas Hadeshen. Hoder takilu. Then we made a new takana. On top of that, mishe zocha b'Trumas Hadeshen yizke b'sidur ma'arocha v'shnei gizirei. That's when we added 2 additional avoidas to entice the Kohanim. In addition to the avodah of Trumas Hadeshen, we said he'll be able to then misader the ma'arocha and add 2 of the logs of wood onto the ma'arocha, and therefore that was enough to get the Kohan to come and be interested in doing this avodah early morning. The Gemara quotes the Mishnah Bizman shehein merubin. The time that there was a lot of Kohanim, we said there was a foot race. And the Gemara now explains this foot race. How do we determine the winner? After all, the Mishnah states over here that kol hakoidem es chaveiro ba'arba amos zocha. So now the Gemara explains. Rav Papa said, Pshita li, it's pashit to me, says Rav Papa, arba amos da'aro loy. We're not talking about the 4 amos of the ground that precedes the kevesh, the ramp of the mizbeach. Because rotzin va'oilin bekevesh tnan. The Mishnah states that they ran up the kevesh. Kamaisa nami loy. We're not talking about the initial foot of the ramp, because ratzin va'oilin bekevesh tnan v'hodar kol hakoidem es chaveiroi will be zoiche. So it's masha, they go up the ramp. The beini nami loy, to say somewhere in the middle of the ramp, that also can't be the lo mesaimi milso. The Mishnah doesn't state where. It just says within Daled Amos. So Pshita Li, says Rav Papa in conclusion, the Gabe Mizbeach Tnan. Of course, we're talking about Daled Amos within the Mizbeach before we get to the Mizbeach. But yet Rav Papa says, still I have a question. Boy, Rav Papa. Rav Papa then asks, however, Arba Amos she'omru bahadi amo yisoy va'amo soivev. Does these Arba Amos that we're saying, the winner of this Ritz of the foot race, is it including an Amma of the Yesoid and the Amma of the Soivev? Which means it would be 4 Amos that it would be from the Mizbeach itself, including the Yesod and the Amma of the Yesod and the Soivev, or Dilma Bar Me Amma Yesod Va'amma Soiv, or does not include those two Amos. In other words, there were two Amos that was really between the Mizbeach and the Kevish. Only the Kevish was going over, was overlapping. So this Ritza, who was the winner when he came within 4 Amos of that Mizbeach, which would include also the Amma of the Soiv and the Amma of the Yesoid, or was it really 6 Amos from the Mizbeach because it was excluding those 2 Amos, the Yesoid and the Soivev? On that the Gemara says, Teiku leaves it as an unanswered question.